So everyone should be on page 238, and this is the walking club. These are our 2 journal pages for today's lesson. It says the Hillside Elementary School Walking Club meets every Monday after school. The table below shows how far some students walked at their last meeting. So you'll notice the students' names are on the top, and how many miles they walked is on the bottom, the amount that they walked out of miles. Okay, so let's look at problem number 1. It says Katie walked the same distance at every meeting. How far will she walk after 2 meetings? So A is asking you to draw a picture, B is write a multiplication equation, C is the answer, and D is talking about what whole numbers is it between. So let's look at Katie. Katie went 2/3 of a mile every time she walks, so each meeting. So how many miles will she go after 2 meetings? So you can do fraction bars or fraction circles, whichever one, and I would draw 2 fraction bars to represent the 2 meetings, and I would split each one into thirds to represent 2/3. So then I would shade in 2 from each. And if I counted them, I could see that she went 4/3. A multiplication equation would be 2 times 2/3, which is the same as 2 times 2 over 3. And if I were to solve that, I would get 4/3, which is the same thing as if I added up these 1/3, I see that there's 4 of them, so it's 4/3. So the answer is she went 4/3 of a mile, or 1 mile and 1/3, if I was to change that improper fraction to a mixed number. So between what 2 whole numbers does my answer lie? If I was to put this on a number line, where would it fall? Well, I know that there's 1 whole, so it's definitely greater than 1, but it's not as big as the number 2. So my answer lies between 1 and 2. We're going to do the same thing for problem 2. So it says Jack walks the exact same distance at every meeting. How far will he walk after 4 meetings? So let's go over and go to Jack, and he went 5/6 of a mile. So I can do the same thing. I will make 4 fraction bars. And I will split them all into 6. So the easiest way to do that is to split it into half, then into 4s. Oh, sorry, actually I should have split that into thirds. Hold on. There we go. Split it into thirds, and then split those thirds in half to get 6 close to equal pieces. Good. And out of those 6 pieces, each meeting he went 5 of them. So I would shade in 5. Okay, now I'm going to write my multiplication problem. It would be 4 meetings times each meeting he went 5/6 of a mile, which would be 4 times 5 over 6, which would equal 26. So my answer is 26, or if I change that to a mixed number, it would be 3 2/6. So my answer is greater than 3, but not quite as big as 4. Okay, problem number 3. Maria walks the same distance at every meeting. Find out how far she'll walk after 7 meetings. So let's go to the next page and find out how much Maria walks. So Maria, each meeting goes 4/3 of a mile. So my multiplication equation would be 7 times 4/3, which is the same as 7 times 4/3, which is 28/3. So she went 28/3, which is the same as 9 1/3. So she went 9 1/3 miles in 7 meetings. So between what two whole numbers does our answer lie? Well, we know that it's greater than 9, but not as great as 10. So it's in between 9 and 10. At every meeting, if at every meeting they walk the distance shown at the on the table, who walks the greater distance? I think her name is Mapara after 6 meetings, or Nikhil after 4 meetings. So this is a multi-step problem. First, you have to figure out how much Mapara went, and then you have to figure out how much Nikhil went. So let's go back and look at the graph. So Mapara went 9/10 of a mile. So I'm going to write that over here so I don't forget. And Nikhil went 1 1/4. I'll erase those after. So the first thing we need to figure out is how much they each went. So I'm actually going to split here, and I'm going to do an M for Mapara and an N for Nikhil. And I'm going to use 2 different colors so I don't get confused. So they said Mapara went 9/10 every meeting, and she went 6 meetings. So that would be 6 times 9/10, which is equal to 6 times 9/10. And you would get 54/10 or 5 4/10. So she went 5 4/10 of a mile. She went 5 whole miles and 4/10 of another mile. Okay, so let's do Nikhil's. He went 4 meetings, and each meeting he went 1 1/4. So I'm going to change 1 1/4 to an improper fraction. And I know that that would be 5/4, right? Because this would be this would be 4/4 plus 1/4 would be 5/4. I'm going to erase these so I don't get confused. Okay, so this would be the same as 4 times 5/4, which is 20/4, which is equal to 5. So we can see that Mapara went 5 miles and 4/10 of another mile, and Nikhil only went 5 miles. So who walked the greater distance? Mapara. And how much more? She went 4/10 of a mile more than Nikhil, because she went 5 whole miles and he went 5 whole miles. And then what's left is that 4/10. So for number 5, you can make up your own multiplication story. I'm going to leave that one blank for now and move to number 6. So if we were to write number 6 again, 6 times 1/2, you would get 6 halves, which is the same as 3 wholes. For 7, you would do 9, because this also represents 9 times 3/4, and that equals 27/4, or 6 wholes and 3/4. All right, let's look at the bonus. If Cole walks the same distance at every meeting and wants to walk a total of 7 1/2 miles, how many meetings will he need to attend? Okay, so this is a little bit tricky. we're going to go and look at Cole. Cole, every meeting goes 2.5 miles. So I know that he goes 2.5 miles. Now I'm going to change 2.5 miles to an improper fraction. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 whole. Actually, you could do it that way. You also, since it's halves, you know that if I added 2 meetings, right? This is meeting 1. This is how far he went meeting 2. I could add the whole numbers, which would be 4. And I could add the fractions, a half and a half as a whole, and I would get 5. So in 2 meetings, he walked 5 miles. But they want 7.5. So if he went to another meeting, meeting number 3, he would walk an additional 2.5. Now I would add the whole numbers, which is 7, and the fraction, which is 1/2. So he would need to go to 3 meetings in order to walk 7.5 miles.